thrilled to be here today. I left my team back in London doing H1 planning and my daughter doing Christmas decoration to tell you a story. So let's rewind time a bit. It's a few years ago. It's a gloomy afternoon in Sweden, and it's time for my bi-yearly individual growth discussion. I walk into the room. There is a whiteboard on the one side and a glass wall on the other side, small table, 2 chairs. It's a type of room that we call a one-on-one room, where a manager talks with their direct reports about goals, aspirations, performance, and so on. I'm sipping some decaf coffee, trying to feel cozy for this hour-long meeting. And right in the middle of sipping, my manager asked me the question, "Have you ever considered transitioning to management, Lila?" I almost choke. My imposter syndrome flares up and I start thinking, oh my God, I'm not coding well enough, I'm not technical enough. He actually wants to fire me, but it's easier for him to find another job for me in the company. So yeah, that's why he's making this suggestion to me. He reads the horror on my face and he tells me, "It's a good thing, Lila, don't worry." Then he starts listing times when I actually helped my team deliver by introducing a new process, making them more efficient. I helped individuals in my team navigate conflict, and he tells me that I have some skills left untapped in my role as individual contributor, and that he thinks I should apply for the open manager role that we have in the department. So I spent the next couple of days agonizing and wondering what I should do. I keep gravitating between the different decisions, alternating every moment, almost. And then I realized that this is a problem just like any other. I just need data in order to make an informed decision. So I start interviewing managers across the org from different product areas and different levels. And I tell them that I'm doing a small study about management. And in that way, I get some insights that help me make a decision. And I decide to take the leap. So I'm here today to share with you the surprises that were waiting for me on the other side. Surprise number 1, probably the scariest one. I went from being senior at something that I knew how to do to becoming junior at something that I had no idea how to approach. I studied computer science for 5 years, so by the time I became a software developer at my first job at Ericsson, I had already written a fair amount of code. But when I became a manager, I had no theoretical ground to stand on. I realized I had to learn how to attract and retain talent, how to help people grow, how to navigate performance evaluation discussions, and even power through many small administrative tasks that I wasn't even aware of before becoming a manager. I also had to learn how to negotiate, how to influence people, how to prioritize. I had to be deliberate with every single decision I made when it comes to time management, because there was an opportunity cost, both for the things that I did and for the things that I didn't do in my day. On top of that, I had minimal support because my new manager was the director of the department. He was super busy. He didn't have too much time to spend with his individual direct reports. So there, I found myself in a new role that I was struggling to cope with minimal support. That was pretty scary. But again, I let my engineering brain take charge. So I devised a learning plan for myself. Within the first year of being a manager, I read 6 books, I attended 5 online courses, I found 2 mentors within the company to help me navigate my personal growth, and I spent the first one-on-ones with my manager clarifying expectations over and over again until I had internalized them. More than anything else, I made a lot of mistakes which I learned from, and I do apologize to the people in my team that had to suffer through those. So the next big surprise, getting feedback as a manager is not as easy as getting it as an individual contributor. Even in the best of circumstances, the relationship dynamics between you and your peers change when you become their manager. So they cannot be as direct with you. They're afraid that this might have implications on their performance evaluation. On top of that, all the outcomes of your work are more long-term, so you focus on long-term deliverables, on individual growth that might take months. which means that you don't actually see the results of your work until much later. The iteration cycles are longer, and the feedback is scarce and less effective. Not only is this bad for your own personal development, but it also deprives you of this nice dopamine kick that you get when you land code into production. Like this feeling that you get when your tests turn green and you get thumbs up in your diff reviews. You don't get that as a manager. Instead, you get hints and nudges and charts and timelines. So there were many days that I considered transitioning back to coding, back to being a programmer. And I still have these days. Like, there are some days that I just want to put headphones on and sit in front of the computer and code. But I cannot indulge, because these tiny one-on-one rooms have become the place where I live and breathe, helping my direct reports plan for their future, make decisions, or even just let off some steam by ranting to an eager ear. Now, the third surprise for today: problem solving is not always a desirable managerial skill. Now, even just saying that makes my skin crawl. As an engineer, this is why I got into science. I like making decision trees in my head and traversing them to make the right call. But as a manager, that's exactly what I have to empower other people to do. I have to keep reminding myself that the people who are closer to the solution, to the problem, are the ones that are more likely to find a good solution. I have to focus on goals, not tactics, on the what, not the how. And this is not an easy thing to do. And remember, having technical debates with your direct reports can be like walking on a tightrope for them, because it cannot feel good to know that your manager, the person who decides your performance evaluation, is standing against you in a technical argument. So before you realize it, they step off the tightrope, and then you have a very competent individual feeling disempowered and silenced. Talking about hard things, my last surprise for today: losing sense of self. Now, this might sound a bit dramatic, but actually, I found it hard to consolidate the person who I was before becoming a manager with the person I had become. Not only did I feel like I had traversed this, invisible line to the dark side, but I actually had a dual role to fulfill. I had to represent the engineers to the company and the company to the engineers. And though this should have been easy for me to anticipate, the implications of that actually became clear after I had made the transition. Soon after I transitioned to management, a big reorg happened in my company, and I had to communicate these changes, many unwelcome changes, to my team, the people who were my peers until a couple of months ago. I had to help them feel safe, understand the reasoning behind the decision, see opportunities, etc. But actually, I didn't agree with those changes. I found it very difficult to break the news to them. And on top of everything, the engineering and the product director of the department were in a mountain in Sweden skiing, and they had no signal reception, so they couldn't really support me. That's a true story. So what I did was that I reached out to other people within my social network in the company. I tried to get as much information as I could in order to be able to empathize with the decision that the leaders had made. I asked from one of my peers in the leadership team to coach me through this whole change that was happening in the organization, to help me identify opportunities, to help me see past the reef and into the ocean. And when I had the Q&A session with my direct reports, I made sure to document all their feedback and communicate it upwards. It was not a happy place to be in, but it did help me grow as a leader. So now I have opened all my cards to you, and you must be wondering, why bother? Why actually do that job and not just, stay an engineer? It's a happier place to be. Well, for me, the opportunity to broaden the scope of my impact, to help underrepresented groups in my company, to be able to influence hiring processes and performance evaluation processes so that they become more fair and less biased. And my direct reports who look to me for support and for feedback, this make it all worth it. So I promise you that there will be surprises if you transition to management. But if your motivation comes from your passion in helping others, then I promise you, you'll be okay on the other side. Thank you.